Well, hello and good evening. Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Headlines. This evening, I'm pleased to present our panelists. We have in studio with us this evening, Grenada's Ambassador to CARICOM and the Chairman of the National Reparations Committee, Senator Arnie Gill. I'm putting the handle Senator Arnie Gill. He's a former Minister of Culture appointed through the Senate, so we put that handle. And joining us virtually this evening, we have Dr. Nicole Phillip Dow, and she's a historian. We'll give you a little more of her bio as the program progresses. And out of Sabre, Grenadian, Mr. John Angus Martin. Good evening to you both, and good evening, Senator Gill.
Pleasant evening, and thanks for having us.
Great. So this evening we are theming the program Republicanism, and that's because of what happened in Barbados last week. Barbados has gone republic. Senator Gill, Dr. Dow, and Mr. Martin will be expounding on that, taking us beyond the reports, the sound bites that we've heard. And we're starting with you in studio this evening, Senator Gill. How significant is that?
Well, first of all, allow me to once again congratulate the government and people of Barbados for blazing this trail. I believe that it is significant that the government and people of Barbados have decided to advance their independence as a people and to break that colonial chain where the Governor General appointed by the Queen of England sits as the head of state, effectively the Queen of England being the head of state. And republic essentially means that a form of government where the people holds the power and its elected representatives. Now, so what Barbados has done is to make a clean break with regards to its elected representatives and its people holding power. And the head of state is a Barbadian, and no longer they will be swearing allegiance to the Queen of England. A very significant and momentous occasion for the government and people of Barbados.
You call it significant, you call it trailblazing. Let me ask Dr. Nicole Phillip Dow for her thoughts on that. I know we go to Angus, I'll come back to you. Dr. Phillip, welcome again. And do you agree that it's a trailblazing event?
Yes, definitely. Good evening to everyone. And I'd like to echo the sentiments of Senator Gill by saying congratulations to the government and the people of Barbados for taking such a bold step. Becoming a republic is basically the next step after independence. And we have had trailblazers before Barbados. Trinidad, Guyana, Dominica are all republics. They have taken that step. What we have within the Caribbean would be islands who would have had connections to Britain, to France, to Spain, to Holland, as the case may be. In our case, Britain. And that moving away from Britain, it was a gradual process of movement. Whether it was through associated statehood, eventually moving into having a premier, and then finally independence into having a prime minister. And now it's just taking it that one step further. Basically, we're loosening the apron strings, the attachments that we had to our former colonial masters. And we have to look at it in that light. It is breaking those bonds and breaking those chains. And that is one way of actually looking at this step that Barbados has taken. It is monumental. We look at it also in the context of as to what has been happening in recent time in the whole Black Lives Matter movement, not just within the Caribbean, but in the US, throughout the world, in fact, that people are coming to the realization and the awareness that these linkages to the colonial past are things that we need to learn from, one, and make those clean breaks and then start moving forward. And that's how we get into the whole conversation eventually about reparations and what does that mean for Caribbean people. So there's a lot attached to this movement of Barbados into becoming a republic.
And you mentioned reparations, just so that our audience will know that all three members of the panel are members of the National Reparations Committee. Senator Gill in studio with us is the chairman of that committee. And let's cross now to Sabre to talk to John Angus Martin. He is a historian and archivist, currently serving as the director of the Sabre Historical Center, Sabre Dutch Caribbean. He specializes in the history of colonialism and slavery in Grenada, but explores Caribbean identity. And he's presently completing his PhD. So, John, as we examine this, we've had plaudits coming from Senator Gill and Dr. Dow. A differing opinion from you?
No, I would say I would have to support them 100%. I think it's I think most people in the Caribbean would see this as an achievement, not just for Barbados, but it actually puts a spotlight on everyone else, which is going to be the discussion tonight, and for the other islands. I think we often, we big up Barbados right now because of what they've done and some of the things they've done recently. But when we look at the fact that Dominica actually went directly to becoming a republic, once they got independence, I think we often bypass that and not really give them, that credit that they made that decision at that point to forgo the Queen and go directly to republic status. So I think it's something that its time has come, and it's a fulfillment of our independence goals to claim that independent status, that political independence. Some might refer to it as just a symbolic, but symbolism is important in any, especially for the islands in the Caribbean and the history we've had. So no, it definitely ranks up there. With the political things that have been taking place, especially throughout the Caribbean and the world, really, this year.
Excellent. One of the things we want to look at, particularly during the program, is whether Grenada probably has missed the boat, because we know we've had our own referendum. But before we segue into that, let's go to Barbados and look back at one of the reports that was filed looking at the whole transitioning from independence to being a republic.
Centuries in the making, this is one party for the ages. Long known as the Caribbean's Little England, but no more. Barbados is going off on its own and wants the world to know.
The inevitable is happening. The British monarchy has fallen like a leaf in autumn in Barbados.
Renowned for its sand and sun, this country has a cruel history. The English arrived on these shores nearly 400 years ago, imposing their rule on generations.
We sang God Save the Queen, and then there was a certain reverence for it. It was a colonial society.
Even in Ralph Jamot's living memory, apartheid was the unwritten reality. He wouldn't have felt welcome at this yacht club.
If you saw black people around here, I'll have nowhere to be workers, waiters, and the white minority, by and large, still controls the economic direction. They still have the wealth.
The hope is making Barbadians citizens of their own republic will make them feel in greater control of their own destiny, having for the first time a head of state from the black majority amid a global reckoning over racial injustice and colonialism.
Long time coming, and no time like the present.
It's just to know that the head of your state would be a Barbadian. That's important for morale.
It's like a mother-child, but now the child is going independence.
Child's grown up.
Yeah, grown up.
It's been a long road to get here, and it all began in the sugarcane fields. African slaves were forced to work in brutal conditions, a system developed by the British here and later exported to the southern U.S. Barbados wants reparations for the atrocities of slavery, and experts like Tennyson Joseph hope removing the British monarch will help bolster the case for compensation.
It actually was a black mark on Barbadian democracy. It was one thing to make a demand for reparations overseas, and yet on your own internal space you have not done anything to fully decolonize.
Barbados gained independence 55 years ago, but Queen Elizabeth remained head of state until now. So there will be no more inspecting the troops by a British monarch. And Prince Charles will never become king of this country. Still, he was invited here. He's even being awarded Barbados' highest honor, a parting gift of sorts. Some consider that an insult.
It sent a very, very bad message because the Queen and her family benefited from slavery.
Wearing her country's colors, gold and blue, that's Sandra Mason, the first ever president of Barbados, until now the Governor General. She'll replace the Queen as head of state. Prime Minister Mia Mottley spearheaded the plan without putting it to a public vote.
Some ask why now? Why a republic in the middle of a pandemic?
Choosing instead to move forward, confident of the public's backing.
Prime Minister for Canada, what message are you sending to other Commonwealth nations?
My message first and foremost is really to Barbadians. We're conscious that others will watch us, but we believe first that we need to complete the process of independence. If we are going to face the world with confidence, then we need to do so as whole as we can.
The day after independence happens, or the transition to a republic, how is that going to change the life of people in your country?
Bringing 396 years of British monarchical rule to an end says to every Barbadian boy and girl that they can be the best that they can be.
With the country's colors on display across the island, there's a sense of history being made. Generations after slaves had their lives stolen, their descendants are reclaiming what they can.
Quite a piece there. So a couple of things stuck out to me when he said that Barbados has had a cruel history. I kind of winced. A parting gift to Prince Charles, question mark. 396 years. So Dr. Dow and Mr. Martin, I want to come to you on your takeaways from that report, but let me start here with Senator Gill.
I think Prime Minister Mottley put it best when she said that it is the end of centuries of colonial rule by going republic. That is significant, and as well as the aspiration of every Barbadian boy or girl can aspire now to be head of state. That is significant because, for instance, if we were to look at and I work with the Constitution just so I can read to our listeners and viewers the pledge that our leaders, parliamentarians, and so on pledge from time to time. It says, I, and they put in the name, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God. You're not even in swearing allegiance. We are not even swearing allegiance to the state or to the nation of Grenada. We are still swearing allegiance to the Queen of England, who is synonymous with colonialism, slavery, and the slave trade. So it's a significant advancement of nationhood that Barbados has taken. And I believe, as Prime Minister Mottley rightly put it, that the world eyes is on Barbados. I mean, the sort of international coverage that this republicanism, move to republicanism has given on Barbados. I mean, all media houses all over the world. The other significant point that came out from that particular clipping is that persons ask why now? And well, not just in the middle of the pandemic, but you're talking about a nation 55 years old. In 2 years' time, Grenada will be 50 years. What say we? Maybe I should stop now so the other persons who are not in studio can come in.
And you raised that question, what say we? I want us to get to what say we. But let me go to Dr. Dow. I noticed that she's smiling there. And just in case you joined us late, Dr. Nicole Phillip Dow has served in the field of education for the past 24 years. She holds a PhD in history from the University of the West Indies. She's currently the head of site of the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Grenada. Dr. Phillip Dow is a historian, having written, co-authored, and co-edited 4 books. A very illustrious career at a very youthful age. Dr. Phillip, your takeaways from that report?
I have always admired Prime Minister Motley of Barbados. He just has a way with words and has a way of coming across to people that they can truly understand what she's talking about. And she reminds me of someone else, but I'm going to behave myself tonight.
In other words, you don't go there.
I'm a good Grenadian. And she reminds me of Morris, way that she speaks to people and gets the message across. But what she said that struck out to me was that the younger generation would be able to see themselves in that position as head of state. It's extremely important, and putting on the hat of a teacher, once a teacher, always a teacher. I would have taught at SJC, I would have taught at TAMCC. The need for the awareness of people of their history and of their past so that they understand where they're coming from, and giving them a greater appreciation of where they are now and where they're going. So by saying that the head of state, we have removed the Queen as head of state, and all the connotations, all the linkages to colonialism, to slavery, to all the atrocities associated with slavery, you have removed that person, and you are now saying that a Barbadian is now representative of the Barbadian people, is now the head of state. You are saying to your young people that this is possible, and that we are breaking those chains from the past. It's important for them to understand what the chains were and why we need to break those chains, and that is extremely important for young people to understand. And we have some deficits or deficiencies in Grenada where that is concerned, and I don't want to get onto my soapbox, but that is a serious reality, that our young people are not aware of our history. And so it's difficult sometimes for them even to make these connections and for them to understand the movement forward if they don't understand what happened in the past. And it struck me when she made that comment, because it speaks about looking forward and looking to the future. But in looking forward and in looking to the future, we sometimes have to look back so that we understand where we're coming from, a true appreciation of it, so that in moving forward, it is much easier because we understand where we came from.
Right. John, your takeaways from the report we aired a short while ago?
Right. I think for me it was interesting the idea of going all the way back where this began, in the sugar plantations. I think as much as Barbados, Grenada's history, of course, is quite similar. And I think, as Nicole alluded to, that a lot of that is really people are not aware of the extent of that history and what took place in Grenada. I think we talk about slavery, but it's always in general terms. It's in numbers, not talking about specific lives and how that affected people and how it affects the population today. So I think in making this move, it is a way of saying we're taking control, of our history, our destiny as well, where we're going with all of this, and that we're willing to stand on our own and make a pledge to ourselves to expose this history and let everybody become aware of it as well, and then recognize that having someone as your head of state who may have been associated, with that history in such a way that maybe removing them from that position allows you, in a way, to free up yourself and to make these decisions about how we move forward and how we look to the future, but by first exposing all of the details of our past, that we become comfortable in how we deal with that, how we put it out there, how we seek to get reparative justice for all of that history, going all the way back to the Kalinago, not just, not starting with just with slavery, but going all the way back to the Kalinago, and making sure that people are aware of that history and the roles that different people played in it, including the Queen and the royal family historically.
Right, so Senator Gill, I'm coming back to you to ask, what say we? Grenada attempted a referendum on how many occasions?
2 occasions.
2 occasions, and the Prime Minister has vowed never me again. Have we missed the boat?
No, we're still here. And I believe that is an issue that we need to revisit. Now, also, during that clipping with Barbados, you would observe that the commentator said that the Prime Minister Motley did not go to the people for a vote with regards to the referendum, alluding to a referendum which we had. Now, the Constitution of Barbados does not, it is not a requirement that Barbados do a referendum. In Grenada, we would need a referendum to go republic, as we would need a referendum to abolish appeals to the Privy Council and to adopt the Caribbean Code of Justice. Now, it's very interesting that Grenada was the first of the Lesser Antilles to achieve independence statehood under former Prime Minister Sir Eric Matthew Gairy. Now, when Grenada was approaching independence, there was strong opposition in Grenada with regards to Sir Eric Matthew leading that particular initiative. His political opponents believe that Sir Eric would have done so much things when he was premier. Could you imagine what he could have done as Prime Minister with all this power? So that these entrenched provisions was really and truly a compromise to curtail the powers of Sir Eric Matthew Gairy from associated statehood moving into independence. Now, interestingly, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, in a letter that he wrote to Mayor Motley, says that that initiative here in Grenada, we being the first of the Lesser Antilles getting independence, Grenada would have influenced other constitutions throughout, in particular the OECS, but of course Dominica went directly into republic with regards to these entrenched provisions. And we have to appreciate that in St. Vincent as well, Prime Minister Gonsalves initiated a referendum with regards to the CCJ and giving it final appellate jurisdiction, and he lost. So these entrenched provisions that we had, that we have in our 1974 in our Constitution, is indeed a political legacy that has impacted the Caribbean. Now, when you say that we have missed the boat, I don't believe we have missed the boat, but I do understand and I appreciate the frustration by Prime Minister Mitchell in the fact that on 2 occasions he came to us and said, listen, let us go to the CCJ. And on both occasions, he lost. Grenada lost. I prefer to say Grenada lost, but I don't think we missed the boat. I believe that we need to revisit the issue. I think there's a greater need now for national consciousness, national awareness. I believe that all political parties need to get on board with regards to the issue, because there's no point in us becoming a republic and we're still having appeals to the Privy Council.
But okay, so we could go there. If we could hold it, because we need to take a commercial break. I want to quickly ask Dr. Nicole Philip Dow and John Angus Martin, is it that the referendum failed because it was a flawed process, it was too complicated? Do we need to revisit it? Let's start with John and then we go to Dr. Nicole Philip Dow.
I guess one would say it was our first experience with a referendum. And there were lots of issues associated with it. It didn't get the full support from all of the political parties, and there were some language issues and things like that. So I would say it's as you know, as Ali said, it's not a failure. The failure was all of us that lost out on what we could have achieved with that. Interestingly, the idea of the Queen and her role in Grenada's political system was not even on the ballot. That was not even raised at all, you know. So I think maybe now that with the experience of the past referendums, that hopefully we can approach this, you know, with more openness and be able to debate this in public, and both political parties or all major political people can get behind this, because this is about us. You know, this is not about a political party. This is really about Grenada fulfilling its goals of independence. So I think it's, you know, we probably should get, you know, the political parties to declare, you know, what they think the implication of Barbados gaining Republican status is for Grenada, and put their voices behind that. Okay.
Dr. Dow?
I think we still have opportunities to really talk about this, discuss it, and to probably we'd have to go down the road of reparations again. Sorry, not reparations, it's on my mind, sorry. We'd have to go down the road of referendum again. But I think what is extremely important is public awareness and public understanding of what all of this really means, all right? When I say that I want to go to the Privy Council, as opposed to, do I want to go to the Privy Council, do I want to go to the CCJ? What are some of the issues related to that? What difference does it make to me as a Grenadian in going in either one direction or the next? To be broken down into the simplest language that people really understand, right? If we're saying, all right, we want to become a republic as opposed to where we are now, that should be explained very clearly as to what are the differences between staying where we are, going in that direction, so that people really understand. And it shouldn't only just be about persons who can vote, but we also need to take it wider into children, into schools. I'm very passionate about young people understanding their country's history, understanding how the connections between the past and the present. And if they get that sort of understanding, you're growing a generation that can understand for moving forward, yeah? Because a reparation may happen now, a reparation may happen 15, 20 years from now, but if there's no understanding now within our young or among our young people as to what does this whole thing mean, you need to get them on board. So it's not just about the persons who can actually vote, but a common understanding and a public awareness among our young people as well, because they are the ones who have to move this country forward.
Yeah. In 30 seconds, do you think the process probably was flawed? There were too many questions for people to decide on in the last referendum, for example?
Possibly. We may have to take it in smaller chunks, with a lot more public awareness and a lot more explanations of the actual terms. What does this mean? So that people really understand what they're doing and what they're getting into. So probably the idea of putting so many together may have been a flaw. Probably smaller bites. Let's make it bite-sized and easier to swallow than it would have been on the last round.
On that note, we'll take a commercial break. This is Beyond the Headlines. Tonight we're looking at Republicanism. Barbados went republic last week, and we're looking at what say we in Grenada. Is there still a chance for Grenada to revisit the issue following two failed referenda? We will continue the discussions with our panelists on the other side of the commercial break.
It's the season to give, and Granlec invites you to give a gift of love and light to someone in our community who has been challenged by COVID-19. Make your account current and nominate someone for a chance to win. 200 winners will be gifted with a $400 grocery voucher or a $75 electricity voucher. If we select your entry, you too will win. Visit our website or Facebook page for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Promotion runs November 24th to December 24th. Give a gift from Grenlec this holiday.
Thinking of what the perfect gift will be this Christmas? Gift yourself or a loved one with a mattress from Dean's this Christmas. Get 10% off on all size and make of mattresses. Find the perfect mattress for your sleeping pattern, whether firm or soft. We have the quality and prices to suit everyone's needs. Make the right choice this Christmas by calling 440-3240 or WhatsApp 419-9036. Season's greetings from the management and staff at Dean's Mattress, where quality is never compromised.
Introducing Color by Seasons. 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 Color by Seasons.
Gifts of love with dread, bringing love for you this year. Communion showing that we care, with gifts of love with dread.
We're bringing you gifts of love with cheer at the communal. This Christmas, we are your Santa. It's all about sharing the warmth of this season with those you love. Get in on this special loan, taking advantage of great interest rates with no principal payments until January 2022. Share the gift of love. Make it a merrier Christmas with the communal. Exciting prizes for members throughout the promotion. For we are your Santa this Christmas. Offer ends January 31st, 2022. Lending terms and conditions apply.
Communion showing that we care, with gifts of love with dread.
Do I need to wear a mask and avoid close contact with others if I am fully vaccinated?
Thank you, and this is a very important question. The vaccines that we have against COVID-19 are very effective vaccines, and it gives a really good chance of not developing the disease. We must know that there is no vaccine that provides 100% protection for any disease. With that being said, we do expect cases of disease among people who are fully vaccinated. Though this is rare, it can happen, and we call this breakthrough infections. This is not unique to COVID-19. This doesn't mean that the vaccines aren't working. It means that not everyone who receives vaccines has 100% protection, and as a result, vaccinated persons, if they become infected, are capable of transmitting the virus to others. For these reasons, vaccinated persons must continue to practice the prevention measures like mask wearing and avoiding close contact or crowded places. So to answer your question, yes, you need to wear a mask and avoid close contact with others even if you are fully vaccinated.
And this is Beyond the Headlines. The discussions continue this evening. We're looking at Republicanism, looking at what happened in Barbados last week. Barbados went Republic, and we're looking at it within the context of the two failed referenda here in Grenada. Grenada still remaining an independent nation and has not gone that other step. We have heard this being hailed as trailblazing. Our three panelists are unanimous in their agreement. One of the things we want to look at is a dissenting voice, and that dissenting voice belongs to Sir Garfield Sobers, well-known West Indian cricketers. Let's look at that, and we'll come back and continue the discussions.
Cricket legend Sir Garfield Sobers in shock over Barbados' decision to become a republic.
Barbados' decision to become a republic has been criticized by the West Indies all-rounder Sir Garfield Sobers. Barbadian-born all-rounder Sir Garfield Sobers, 85, voiced his disappointment after the Caribbean nation decided to become a republic, but Sir Sobers, who made his Test debut for the West Indies against England in 1954, told The Telegraph, "It will be very sad for a lot of us." The cricketing legend, who was knighted in the Barbadian capital after he spent a period of his career playing for Nottinghamshire, added, "The Queen was very highly appreciated here. It will be very sad for a lot of us. It was a bit of a shock." Speaking about his knighthood, the 93-time capped cricketer said, "What a great honour it was. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. The place was completely packed. When she took out the sword to knight me, my little boy was there and he said, 'Don't hit my daddy with that.'" But Sir Sobers also explained to the broadsheet how the Queen, 95, would be in attendance during the side's test matches at Lord's. Following Barbados' decision to cut links with the Crown, there are concerns other nations could soon join them.
Senator Gill.
Yes, and I believe that there are still persons among us that love the trappings of British traditions, the knighthoods, the OBEs, the CBs, the Queen Council's appointment and so on. So there are still persons who admire, who revel in the British traditions. But I believe that you would have dissenting voices, but I believe the majority of us knows that, appreciates that it is important. When Bob Marley sang, "Liberate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds," he was alluding to that. Now, Sir Garfield Sobers was a living hero in Barbados, and of course last week there was a new hero in Barbados appointed by the government in Rihanna. So we've seen the transition through generations and so on. Of course, Sir Garfield was one of the greatest cricketers who ever lived. But I believe that his dissenting voice is really and truly in the minority.
John Angus Martin, what do you make of Sir Garfield Sobers' opposition to what has happened in Barbados?
Well, of course, he, from an older generation, definitely have different sensibilities when it comes towards the royal family or the Queen, which is understandable because he had a very different involvement. I think probably when he went to school, he probably did not learn much about the depth of that history, which we are very much aware of today. And it is important to us in moving forward that we break these bonds in order to achieve, what we can achieve on our own. I think the question about, losing the Queen, or, I guess the question we should ask is what are we losing? What are we giving up? We're not losing anything in the sense that we will still be part of the Commonwealth. That will not change. Or look at Dominica. What does Dominica get that we don't? Or what do we get that Dominica doesn't? As a result of our relationship with the royal family compared to Dominica's relationship. So I think if we look at some of those issues or those questions surrounding the role of the Queen or in our politics today, we still do maintain quite a bit of the pomp and ceremony. In our parliament, we still carry a mace which has emblazoned on it slaves working on a sugar mill, and those are things we need to take a look at. Should we keep as our symbol of parliamentary democracy a symbol stamped, emblazoned on our mace, with slaves working on a sugar mill? Is that something that we should be proud of? So I think this opens up, this question, for all of these other islands in the Caribbean, these countries, independent countries in the Caribbean, do we make that move forward and question some of these other symbols that are stuck. The Queen is one of many symbols that we need to take a look at, because I think we have not taken a look at that because we have really not examined a lot of our history, and that remains to be done.
Dr. Philip Doe, I'm coming to you here because I'm here sitting thinking we see all the pomp and ceremony in Parliament, and now I'm thinking the slaves emblazoned on the mace. That's correct, Dr. Doe?
Yes, it is. There's quite a lot of colonial symbolism related to slavery and the slave trade that is still a part of us now. Some of them that we're not even aware of, as Angus alluded to a while ago. There is also another symbol of the one that is actually given to the Governor General. And that symbol, the connotation is basically of someone putting their foot on a black man's neck. The reality of the situation is that we have to understand the history, understand that what we were would have been colonies, and we had a colonial master. The economic system of the time was a system of slavery, and so that all the symbolism would have been related to that economic system that would have funded and fueled the political system of colonialism. So there are quite a lot of these images around that we still have today. We have street names, we have all of these things that are tied to a particular colonial person, whether it is a governor, for example, who was basically operating within the confines of a British colonial system. So these are some of the things that we need to question. Socialization is extremely important. So for someone like Sir Garfield Sobers, who is of a different generation, he would have been socialized, as Angus mentioned, differently. And what he would have been exposed to in terms of the histories, for example, that he would have read or at school or that sort of, it would not have shown that side of Caribbean history. What you basically learned then was British history. So there's a lot that would have been hidden. But now that we are aware of these things, it is important that we are not just be aware of them, but to also make changes, for now and for the next generation. It is extremely important that we do.
I see you nodding, and
Yes.
I can see all the pores opening in the juice.
Because in a real sense, we are still loitering in the slave master's yard.
We are still loitering in the slave master's yard.
I mean, these symbols that John and Dr. Dow spoke about, the Royal Grenadier Police Force, Princess Alice Hospital, all these trappings, some of these
Melville
symbols,
Street.
somehow it is unconsciously on our psyche as a people. We say it, we live it, we are wrong it every day, but it does not dawn on us what it is are we celebrating as a people. And that is why, when we spoke earlier on with regards to the issue of the CCJ, the issue of the CCJ is something that must transcend political parties and political discourse in the country. You see, it's not about a government or prime minister or whatever. It is as a people. And unless we reach that level of national consciousness to take us to that, I have argued, with my colleagues and friends and so on, that for us to go to this other level of national development, there must be national consciousness. A consciousness that says to us, put Grenada first. When we devise an economic policy, that economic policy puts the people of Grenada first. When we devise a social policy, that social policy put Grenada first. So that someone like Sir Garfield would have sang God Save the Queen in school. He didn't sing I Love Grenada as what a Jamo sang. So it's a different socialization, it's a different era, really and truly. And I would really love to see Grenada, we are lifting that level of social awareness and national consciousness.
Okay, and so as we mentioned earlier, all the three members of the panel are members of the National Reparations Committee, being chaired by His Royal Highness.
No, I don't want a royal title at all. I'm not a royalist.
I knew I was going to hit a nerve there. So, John, reparations. For people who hear this big word, reparations, what does that mean, and why do you believe in reparations, the need for reparations?
Right. I think when you look at the history, you go all the way back, like I said, to the 1600s, the mid 1600s, the Kalinago in Grenada, and the fact that, where are the Kalinago today? When we start looking in depth at what took place in Grenada, I think one needs to ask, why is Grenada where it is today, and how we've gotten here, and what are some of the things that we need to make Grenada, really take hold of its independence and be able to move forward. And when Grenada became independent, I think, as far as I know, we got a tea set, from the royal. It was a gift to Grenada, which is in the museum right now. We did not get any financial resources really to take us from a colony to an independent nation. We really did not have the resources that a nation would need to start making these decisions on its own and doing development and things like that. So I think that's why today, there is that demand for reparative justice. And that can come in many different forms. It's not just thinking of a check being handed over. I think and that's some of the things that the Reparations Committee is looking at. It's about the psychological effects. Street names and estate names and things like that. How do we make this space reflect who we are? How do we make this space express our own goals and desires? This place, Grenada, is Grenadian, it's ours. How does that begin to reflect us and share that with the world? And I think that's what we're talking about for changing the name of streets and things like that. And as I said, I think it requires a process. We don't just come, helter-skelter and decide, we're just going to remove this. But we go through a process and create a criteria, for how we replace one name with the other and make sure that these are people that represent Grenada, have made contributions to Grenada, and have Grenadians make that decision. And it's not something that's imposed as they were imposed previously.
Dr. Dow, you're making the case for reparations as well. What does reparations mean to the average, let's say, the standard 5-child in Heinzie, as Roy Roberts like to tell us when we were young reporters?
Yes. One of the things that the Reparations Committee would like to do would be to go out to the schools and have a conversation about reparations to them. The issue of reparations is actually on the CSEC syllabus. It's on the CAPE syllabus for students who are writing history at the secondary level or at the TAMCC level. So it comes up as a matter, the whole issue of reparatory justice. What has to be explained to young people is the connection between colonialism, slavery, and reparations. So, for example, emancipation came in 1834 with a period of apprenticeship, and then 1838 full emancipation. But the slaves were emancipated and they got nothing. The colonial masters got 20 million pounds, and that was their compensation for the property that they had lost, because slaves would have been seen as property. So people were emancipated, but they were not necessarily freed to the point where they had something, they were given anything in which to start off. And the exact same thing happens with independence. the former colonies in the Caribbean got their independence, yes, but there was nothing given to these former colonies as a way of starting off, right? So when you talk reparations, you're not just saying, okay, hand everybody a paycheck for $1 million and that is going to solve the problem. That is not the issue. We want to talk about how we can use, when we ask for reparatory justice, we're talking about things that, for example, education. Let's just use education as an example. We're saying to Britain, for example, that reparatory justice can come in the form of, for example, giving scholarships, as an example, to our young people, right? Of course, there's a price tag attached to it, but you're actually doing something to uplift a nation by providing scholarships. You can say, all right, reparatory justice can come in the form of dealing with our healthcare system, to give us state-of-the-art hospitals, to provide us with specialists, to be able to, again, scholarships, again, send off persons, whether within Grenada, outside of Grenada, in specific areas of medicine. It can come in the form of infrastructure, better roads, better bridges. Yeah? These are all the ways in which the British government can say they are giving reparations. It does not necessarily mean everybody gets a whole lot of money to just splurge on. That's not what reparations mean. And it's important also to understand that reparations is also part of saying, I'm sorry, because what you did was it was actually a crime against humanity to be able to take persons, rip them away from their homes, bring them across to the Caribbean in conditions that were just exceedingly inhumane, and to have them work on a sugar plantation basically until they died, and to be treated very badly, and I'm being very generous here and saying very badly, so that you understand that what was done was actually wrong, and there's need to make some sort of compensation for what you did that was wrong. So all of these things are things that needs to be explained to our young people so that they understand the linkages between slavery, colonialism, and what we're asking for in reparatory justice.
Well spoken. That's a lecture given in 3 minutes, Dr. Daw. We will be forever indebted to you for that, alongside with Senator Gill here in studio and John Martin based there in Sabre, all very, very proud of our Grenadian brother heading up with distinction in Sabre. Senator Gill, I want to come to you, but first, several of the points that you have all made are covered as well in one of the reports coming out of Barbados. That one having to do with, I think it was the Barbados Republic report. Let's look at that and we continue the discussions.
The world's newest republic and a show of national pride. This constitutional shift in Barbados is about asserting self-confidence and shedding the links to its colonial past. Some of this country's most well-known names were among the VIP guests attending the transition ceremony. And also here to watch it all play out, the Prince of Wales, invited to see his mother removed as a head of state, the first time that has happened anywhere in 30 years. For the final time on this Caribbean island, he viewed a military march past and took the final salute. And then the symbolic moment of transition. As the royal standard was lowered over Barbados, it became a republic. It's hard to imagine that this event wasn't tinged with some sadness for the Prince of Wales. He has focused on the enduring friendship between two nations and also spoken directly about the pain of a shared history.
From the darkest days of our past and the appalling atrocity of slavery, which forever stains our history, the people of this island forged their path with extraordinary fortitude. emancipation, self-government, and independence were your waypoints. Freedom, justice, and self-determination have been your guides.
An acknowledgement of the past as this island looked forward and swore in its first ever president.
I, Sandra Prunella Mason, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Barbados according to law. So help me God.
Casting aside the official link to the British monarchy, Barbados is increasingly looking east to China for financial support. There are Republican rumblings too in other Caribbean nations. They will be watching this newest republic closely. Daniela Ralph, BBC News, Bridgetown, Barbados.
Senator Gill, the floor is yours. I saw you nodding several times.
It's interesting that she swear allegiance to Barbados and not to the head of, not to the Queen as head of state. Just to add to what Dr. Dowan Angus pointed out earlier on, when we speak of reparative justice, we need to emphasize the fact that our ancestors built the cities of Europe and built the economies of Europe. In fact, the Caribbean was, in essence, we began the Industrial Revolution with the manufacture of sugar and so on. And all of these exports were done based on free labor. And as Dr. Dow pointed out, when, upon emancipation, these slave owners were paid, compensated for the loss of their property, the enslaved people, and the persons and the slaves themselves, or the African enslaved people who work on the plantations for free, were never compensated at all.
And it's been, so you see that point has been made a couple of times, but you want to re-emphasize that when you say that they were paid for their lost property, you keep saying for the slaves and it wasn't the plantations.
That's
paid
the
for
point.
their property.
The human being, they were paid for, not the plantations, the labor, so that, is extremely important. We need to emphasize that. And when we speak of reparative justice, I would say in short, to encourage listeners to study the CARICOM 10-point plan, because as Dr. Dow and Angus was painfully trying to point out, it's not about everyone coming with a check in hand. Look at Prince Charles' speech. Appalling atrocities. What we are saying is to admit that you were wrong, apologize, say sorry. Because it's really and truly, we are speaking about crime against humanity, the genocide of the Kalinago people. When we talk about Leapers Hill, we're really talking about the genocide of the Kalinagos by Dupaki in 1651. We are talking about the colonial legacy with regards to our diet. The fact that, in the Caribbean, our people suffer with so much chronic disease. And yet for all the health system in the Caribbean and so on, because of our economy, our weak economies, we cannot support as much as we would like our patients that suffer from diabetes and so on. We are saying to the former colonial powers and so on, you need to make the best technology and the best medicine available to us in the Caribbean as part of reparative justice. So I would like to encourage persons to read for themselves the 10-point CARICOM plan and to get active, get involved in the struggle for reparative justice.
Very heavy subject matters here. Seems like I'm getting a history lesson all by itself. Barbadians have had varying points of view on the whole issue. And there's another report, I think we labeled that one, let's see, that one could have been labeled Barbados Cuts Ties. Let's see if we can, which I think we used as covers. So Barbados Cuts Ties, I think, has some of the thoughts on the average Barbadian citizen. Let's look at that. If not, we'll always come back and continue the discussions.
Saying goodbye to the British monarchy as a new era dawns for Barbados.
Possessing a clear sense of who we are and what we are capable of achieving In the year 2021, we now turn our vessel's bow towards the new republic. We do this so that we may seize the full substance of our sovereignty.
Britain's Prince Charles attended the ceremony and acknowledged the atrocities committed by his country as the colonial power.
From the darkest days of our past and the appalling atrocity of slavery, which forever stains our history, the people of this island forged their path with extraordinary fortitude.
The new republic quickly honoured its homegrown stars. Singer Rihanna was declared a national hero by Prime Minister Mia Mottley.
May you continue to shine like a diamond and bring honor to your nation.
Mottley, along with other Caribbean leaders, has called for reparations from former colonising and slaveholding countries in Europe. Shrugging off the last remainders of their colonial past, they now want justice for their new republic.
All right, not quite that one with the responses from Barbadians. We tried to get to it. But Rihanna, national hero.
Well deserved. Rihanna from an island like Barbados, size of Barbados, population of Barbados, is a global figure. And the level of attention and benefits that Rihanna brings to Barbados is significant. I mean, and she born in Barbados, went to school in Barbados. I think she has given Barbados a lot. In fact, just today I saw that making Rihanna a national hero of Barbados has inspired that discussion in Jamaica with regards to Bob Marley. I always thought that Bob Marley was officially recognized as a national hero in Jamaica, but he's not. And there was a columnist today saying, well, what more do we need? So Barbados has ignited that discussion throughout the region at all different levels. And that is when we spoke, and we are lobbying our government here for us to acknowledge not just heroes, but they're icons in Grenada, persons from all walks of life, from teaching to community activists, doctors, medical doctors, other professionals, nurses, and so on, who have given human and selfless service to the development of this country. We must do more to recognize our people and the sacrifices that they have made to develop Grenada. And I believe that Barbados, recognizing Rihanna for her contribution to the development of Barbados, certainly has inspired that discussion, not just in Barbados, but throughout the region with regards to outstanding Caribbean nationals who are deserving of that sort of honor.
And just some feedback coming in on our social media feeds. One person is saying, don't be fooled, Barbados would cut political ties, but the economic ties of the colonizer will remain for a very long time to come. Another person is saying, Queen Elizabeth visited Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean several times and never as much as brought a bottle of aspirin or a packet of Andrew's liver salt and donated them to any of the hospitals in the region. Hudson George is saying, in order for Grenada to hold a successful referendum to become a republic, we must take a page from the South African Constitution. Grenada has experienced the PRG left-wing dictatorship. We cannot just let left-wing political advocates gain. On the other hand, left-wing political thinkers don't have any respect for black people and their culture. Their main interest is to create dictatorial left-wing systems and to take away citizens' freedoms. Ria Batiste is saying, why won't they change upon independence? Is it because we think it sounds distinguished? And Christopher Kodjo is saying Grenadians just need to believe in themselves enough and that it is doable. So some feedback coming in on our social media channels this evening. We have somebody who asked some questions. I wonder if I can get to that at this time. Let me quickly see if I can get to that. Somebody asked, I don't mind the referendum against once it is not to approve the gay man to be public with. Okay, that needs to be filtered. We need to change only the labor laws. How much to pay a person who fried chicken and fish and chips for hours? There might be much more to this. And the next one is, what is going to happen to our people and getting reparations out of the UK?
Yeah, was it the final question?
What is going to happen to our people in terms of getting reparations out of the UK, which is the point yourself and Dr. Darwin.
What will happen to our people?
Yeah, in terms of getting reparations. Dr. Darwin was talking about not necessarily coming with a blank check.
Right. Yes, but persons need to understand that there's a CARICOM Reparations Commission, which was appointed, set up by the CARICOM heads. So Grenada is we are only one committee as part of an entire CARICOM movement with regards to reparations. And thus far, we've had significant advancement. I mean, the issue of reparations is now firmly on the United Nations agenda. And as we have explained throughout the evening thus far, when we speak about reparations, we are not just speaking about a check for every individual. We're talking about education and health and an apology. And we are also talking about, there's also special provisions must be made for the descendants of the first settlers, the Kalinagos and so on and so forth. So that there's a 10-point CARICOM plan which covers a wide spectrum of benefits or interests that we are seeking, and not just the United Kingdom. We have the French Caribbean, so we're talking about France. Persons must appreciate when we speak about Haiti, and Haiti being the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Haiti is practically paying the price for being the first in the Western Hemisphere and for successfully getting rid of colonial power. France had to pay, Haiti, had to pay France over 20 million francs, and in those days was plenty. The value of it, was significant. So that the poverty of Haiti and the economic problems that the Haitians now face is not accident. It's a direct price that they are paying for their independence. So, it's not just about we in the English-speaking Caribbean, but when we speak of reparative justice, we're speaking about all of the region with regards to the French, the Dutch, and Spanish Caribbean, and so on.
And it has just been pointed out to me by the producer that we're almost to the end of our time this evening, and when we try to do wrap-up comments, sometimes it opens a whole can of worms. So before we toss the wrap-up comments, we have to let you know that Senator Gill was the head of chairman of the Carnival Committee.
Yes.
And as we get ready to look to 2022, people are wondering, as part of the reparative justice that people are seeking for what they lost in the last 2 years, or year and a half, any plans for Carnival?
Well, that decision ultimately would have to be made by the cabinet and the government. But I believe that what we are seeing now with St. Kitts looking to have Carnival at the end of December. Trinidad and Tobago is looking to have some sort of Carnival. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Martin, and so on. They're speaking about Carnival. And from the experience of 2021, with Miami, and with the advent of virtual events, and the fact that some countries also has embarked on doing events where only fully vaccinated persons enter venues and fetes and parties and so on, that there is, to my mind, some sort of a good prospect that we can have a carnival in a particular shape or form. But I would like to use the opportunity, and I believe it is extremely important that if more persons in Grenada get vaccinated, it gives us a stronger argument to lobby government for us to have some form of carnival. Of course, one will have to look seriously at and closely at whether or not we'll be able to have public parades, as the Juve parades and the Monday night mass and so on. But I believe that we will be able able to do some events, national events, in controlled venues. And we have 8 months down the road, but I think right now the vibes must be for more and more Grenadians to get vaccinated. I think that would give us, because as John was pointing out earlier on offset, that Sabre is over 90% vaccinated, and they were rewarded, John, with a carnival. So that if we have 100% Grenadians vaccinated, I think that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet will feel hard pressed for us not to have Carnival 2022.
That's the news clipping for tomorrow. John, we're coming to you to share the Sabre experience.
Yeah, no, we actually just finished Sabre Day weekend. From Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we had activities, that involved partying and various activities, celebration Sabre's National Day. And that was open to everyone. Granted, we are a small country and limited people, but I think, and we have been able to control, who comes in and out and so on. But we have been able to have these celebrations, these national celebrations, where no other islands have really been able to do that. And earlier, Sabre was able to start the vaccination process since in March, and they were able to accomplish, over 90% by the time these activities came around in July and now December. So yeah, I would say, like we're talking Barbados being an example of us to follow for Republic, maybe Sabre is an example, that some of the other islands can follow.
John, I think right now we're going to call for your recall. Dr. Dow, we know that one of your closest friendships, your closest ties is with a cultural diehard. So you are hoping that something happens in 2022, yeah?
I am hopeful. I am really hopeful that we can have some form of carnival. It may not necessarily be how we would like to have it, but the plug for more persons getting vaccinated really does help our case and help our cause. So we're hopeful that people will take this as an opportunity so that we can be able to relieve some of the stresses of the last year and a half by having some carnival activities.
Right, we started off talking about Republicanism. We segued into Carnival. Thank you for indulging. Let's have the final word from one of the Caribbean's most popular prime ministers, Mia Mottley. She says the time has come. The time has come for us to put a lid on tonight's discussion. Let's have the final word from Prime Minister Mia Mottley this evening.
Time has come.
We believe that the unfinished business.
The Prime Minister of Barbados says the time has come.
We believe that the unfinished business ought not to go past the 55th anniversary of independence. I am one of the biggest respecters of Her Majesty, but equally, I need to know that my people can also do the same thing and respect the same thing.
A nation with a complex past, slave ships once docked here, Africans brought and exploited by the British.
And it's the sugarcane fields where many were forced to work, cutting down the crop before it was processed. The backbreaking labour led many to die young.
After slavery came to an end in 1834, Barbados remained a British colony. Despite gaining its independence in 1966, the Queen has remained the island's head of state, but that's about to change. The transition comes at a time of uncertainty. The pandemic has had a sharp impact on this island's economy, which relies heavily on tourism.
We need to be free.
But people here still have strong views about becoming a republic.
It changes nothing. Is life going to be better tomorrow? Okay, we are going to be a republic. Is it going to be better? Are the people still going to be living from paycheck to paycheck?
What's your favorite?
But Sharon's daughter Lashawna sees things differently.
For me, becoming a republic means we end that subservience to England and the monarchy and so on.
Signs of this island's colonial past are dotted throughout, but there are plans to introduce new symbols of national pride.
Those are the closing words from Prime Minister Mia Mottley saying the time has come. Let's go to Dr. Philip for closing comments this evening. Dr. Philip Dow.
My closing comment really would be that we work towards awareness for our people so that they understand the whole idea of colonialism, the relationships between colonialism and slavery, and then the relationships between slavery and our call for reparatory justice, the relationships between colonialism and moving away from it into independence, and then that final step towards a republic. It's extremely important that we understand all of this history so that it makes it easier for us to see through those lenses where we came from and where we're going, and so that the work of the Reparations Committee, with the assistance of UWI, because our Vice Chancellor, Sir Hilary Beckles, is at the forefront of calling for reparatory justice throughout the region, so that we can take this information to schools, we can take this information to communities, so we can have conversations about where we came from with a vision to looking forward. So public awareness is extremely, extremely important.
Public awareness. John?
I would say in support of Nicole that one of the things we need to ask, where is our library? Where is our archives? We no longer can outsource our history and culture to the British Library or the British National Archives. We need to have access to these documents about our history so that we could teach our history. So I think in this, probably as we get 2022, we'll probably bring elections. I think we should demand of our political parties that we have the basic symbols and institutions that we need to move into the next century, where we already started. We don't even have a national library or a national archive. So I think that is what I would like to say, that we need that to support some of the other things of providing this information about our past. And if we don't have those institutions, somebody else still has it. So maybe before we let go of the Queen, we ask back for some of the documents, and so that we can have our own.
Johnny made me smile. Before we let go of our hand, we want to get some things before we let go, right? I could just vividly see that image there. Very powerful image, John. Senator Gill, your closing thoughts this evening.
I would say the irony of it all is that Barbados was once known as Little England, and Grenada has been the most rebellious, the most revolutionary of the Eastern Caribbean countries. From 1651, from the Kalinagos to Julia Fedon, 1795, to Sir Eric Matthew Gerry, 1951 social revolution, to the Morris Bishop-led revolution of 1979. We have also had some of the most revolutionary leaders, from Fedon to Tubal Uriah Boss Butler to Sir Eric Matthew Gerry to Morris Bishop, and here we are. So I believe in Grenada we need to continue to agitate. We need to continue to lobby our government, and I hope that the government will revisit the issue of the CCJ. And I believe that step by step we can seriously table the issue of Grenada going republic.
And you think we should have a third referendum?
I believe we should have a third referendum.
And if we do a third referendum, what will you do about the way it's presented, the form? One question per form?
Well, between now and the third referendum, we need to, of course, educate and create that level of national consciousness and social awareness. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of educating, but as John also pointed out, we need all hands on deck. We cannot, again, go to a referendum by political parties or organizations giving mixed messages. We need to get all political parties on board. They need to say in the manifesto that they support the Republic, that they support Grenada acceding to the CCG as a final appellate court and so on. So we need all hands on deck, but I believe it can be done. And we need to awake the social consciousness and awareness of our people. And I believe we can do it. Because of all our great leaders, because of our history of resistance and revolutionary struggles, I believe we can do it.
Do you think one day you'll enter the political fray?
I'm a retired politician.
He's a Dr. Dow, do you believe him?
Yes, I do.
John, you don't believe him, right?
He's in a different role now.
I see. Spoken as a true politician with all the fervor. I'm ready to put an X by your name, right? Let's let it be known. And ladies and gentlemen, to young people or children in the audience, thank you so much for joining us this evening for a very wide-ranging discussion on Beyond the Headlines. In studio with me, I've had CARICOM Ambassador and Chairman of the National Reparations Committee, Senator Ali Gill. I still call him Senator Ali Gill. He is a former Minister for Culture appointed through the Senate, so I always pay due respect. Senator Gill, thank you so much for the great contributions that you make.
Thank you so much for having us this evening.
And of course, he's also the Chairman of the National Carnival Committee. And he
Spice Mass Corporation. We have since transitioned from Carnival Committee to Spice Mass Corporation.
Spice Mass Corporation. I stand corrected right there. And also we have virtually, having joined us this evening, we have the illustrious Dr. Nicole Philip Dow. She's a historian. Dr. Dow has served in the field of education for the past 20 years. She holds a PhD in history from the University of the West Indies. She's currently head of site of the University of the West Indies Open Campus in Grenada, and she's a historian, having written, co-authored and co-edited at least 4 books. Also virtually Grenadian, of whom we're very proud, but he's joining us from Sabre this evening. We've had Mr. John Angus Martin, a historian and archivist, currently serving as the director of the Sabre Historical Center, Sabre Dutch Caribbean. He specializes in the history of colonialism and slavery in Grenada, explores Caribbean identity as well. He is currently pursuing and completing his PhD in Heritage Management at the Faculty of Archaeology at Leiden University, the Netherlands. He's worked as a director, curator of the Grenada National Museum, and is the author of several books on Grenada, including The A to Z of Grenada Heritage, Island, Caribs, and French Settlers in Grenada, 1498 to 1763. He is co-authored with Joseph Opala and Dr. Cynthia Smith, the Team Nation of Carriacou, Sierra Leone's Lost Family in the Caribbean, and co-edited with Dr. Nicole Philip Dow, Perspectives on the Grenada Revolution, 1979 to 1983. A very distinguished panel. I'm forever indebted to the 3 of our guests this evening, and we say a sincere thanks. And we just give the elbow bounce from afar because there's no handshaking. Dr. Dow and John Angus Martin.
John will be officially Dr. John Angus Martin from next week, God's willing.
Whoop, whoop. Celebrate, celebrate. Whoop, whoop, John Angus Martin.
His rightful title.
Very rightful.
We're speaking it into existence.
Speaking it into being. That's a prophetic word. Thanks so much. On behalf of the entire production team here at the Grenada Broadcasting Network, I'm Odette Campbell saying I really enjoyed tonight's program. It was a learning exercise for me, and I'm sure it was for you as well. To audience members who participated on the social media platforms, our sincerest thanks to you. So long for now. We'll see you again next week. Next week, we're looking at a national economic issue, livestock, poultry. Let's have that conversation, some deep depths to which we must go, as we always do on Beyond the Headlines. I'm Odette Campbell. See you again next week. Thanks again.